Hello, this video is to do Fluent two-dimensional transient motion of some rigid bodies called leaflets. And you can see I've got the mesh prepared in the mechanical and in the mesh object, and the Fluent is going to be added to that in this video, and then the flow simulated. So there's a rigid body rotation about a pivot, and we'll see how to do that. Here's the mesh object, and there is Fluent. So we're going to update that mesh and send it over to Fluent, and then start Fluent by double-clicking on the Setup button. The Fluent launcher has noticed that the geometry in the mesh is set to 2D, so it's brought that up, and I have 4 cores on this machine, so I'm going to start using that at double precision. Don't know why it always comes in with a fairly zoomed out view of the place, but it's better if we go and hit the view menu and define a view such as view 0, which will be zoomed in a bit. Going top to bottom through the outline, we're starting out with steady flow. The turbulent model is going to be switched over to a laminar model just for this demo. Different papers use different selections for that, and we need a redefine the air to be blood, and that has a density of 1060 and a viscosity of 3.5 e to the minus 3. So we're going to change that and replace air, which we do not need in this model, and that will automatically be assigned to the thing. The inlet velocity we're going to set as, actually the inlet is going to be changed of the type from velocity to pressure, and the pressure is going to be set for the steady state run at minus 300 PA, which will cause the leaflets to open. We're going to actually set it up as a flow now with some calculations, and that will be first we'll initialize, I should say, and the standard initialization, it's got some velocity to the left, so we'll just help that along. Minus 0.8, initialize, and now we'll do some calculations with maybe 100 iterations and let it converge on a solution. There it is. So next we want to look at that as a vector plot, and the vector is going to be a vector of velocity, and we want to plot that on I've chosen inlet, sorry, we want the interior now that will display properly, which is good. The setup for color map is a bit awkward. We want it to be on the bottom, and we want it a little longer. And we want just plain old numbers, so that's a better display. And during the simulation, we will want to keep a fixed range, and the fixed range will be up to 1 meter per second. We'll do some filled arrows at a scale of, let's skip a couple of the, let's display that, a smaller scale, display that. That's a pretty good scale. So that's the saved vector velocity plot, and we will close that up. What is missing is the outline of the domain, and that is called a mesh. So we'll double click on mesh and create mesh 1 edges, which is all of this, except we don't want the mesh itself to be done. So we'll display that, and we want this and the vector to show together, and that's called a scene. And scene 1 can have both the mesh edges as well as the velocity. So we'll save that. With all that, we're ready to switch over to the transient model, and that is this button, and we will put in a sinusoidal variation on the inlet. This is a constant, and I need an expression, so now I can paste in the expression which I want to start with a minus sign. So the flow will continue to go in the direction which will cause the leaflets to close off the flow. So we apply that, and we will go on with mesh interfaces, which will not interfaces close dynamic mesh. So there is a dynamic mesh which allows you to remesh when the motion of a rigid body occurs, and the rigid body is called 6 degree of freedom, where we create a body, a property, and we'll call it leaf positive y with a small mass. It does some rotation, and the center of rotation is minus 0.0204 and 0.00197, and we don't want it to open more than 64 degrees to maintain some gaps, which I'll show in an image here from the PowerPoint. And we also need a negative leaflet with the minus y sign, which has a minimum angle of minus 64 because it's rotating the opposite direction, and a maximum of 0, which is where it is. And the moment of inertia is 0005. Just making these numbers up as it's just a demo. Create, and let me edit the positive. I think I forgot to put in the same values for each one. So those are properties, and then we create the actual zones with those properties. This is where, say, the negative y rigid body uses the negative y properties with the 6 degree of freedom solver on, and we'll put the center of gravity approximately at minus 0.01, and minus 0.001. It's about in the center of that leaf. So we'll create that. And then we'll create a positive y using the other property, which has center of gravity on the positive side, and create that. So those are our two dynamic mesh zones. We need, or we may want to get a report. Let's get a report on a new report for the area weighted average velocity through the inlet. So on the inlet, we'll have inlet. Well, we'll do inlet pressure first. And we want to print that to the console as well. And we'll say OK to that. We can see that as it solves how the pressure is changing. The initialization is the vector plot that we've already seen here. So just display that. That is our initial conditions from the steady state solution. So we're ready to set up the run calculation, which is going to be 2,000 steps at 1 millisecond. And that's 2 heartbeats, 2 seconds worth. And hit calculate. I think that is everything we needed. Say OK. And here's the pressure reducing. And then it'll reverse, it'll go positive pressure. And we should see things changing. I'm not sure if this updates with the, apparently not, but we will come back soon. So I'm just learning Fluent, and what I know so far is that I need to create a solution animation before I solve. People who know more may know how to create animation after the solution, but I don't know that, so I'm just going to set up animation of the velocity and record like every other frame 0.0022. So and we want to record scene 1, which is what I've just displayed here, which has the like the first 0.25 seconds. The flaps closed, and that's great. So we'll say OK to recording that, and you can record that as HSF files, images, or just save it in memory. But the default is HSF files. And the other thing I would say is we want to make sure the animation view uses this zoomed in view, because when I forget to do that, the animation zooms out to that front view, and that's not appealing. So with the view animation set up, I'm going to just let it continue to calculate. So I notice I'm a quarter second in, so I want to compute exactly 2 seconds from this point in time. I'm not sure if I need the extra quarter second added on, but I'll just pop it in there in case and hit calculate and say OK. So it's going to continue the transient, but this time I'm recording the animation frames, and we'll see how it looks. So Fluent completed the calculations out to 2.5 seconds, and I will see now if it's possible to write a animation file under animations, playback, and I want to write out the video file, and I will hit write. All right, so here is the video file. And I'm playing it at 1.5 times speed in a VLC media player. And you can see the remeshing causes the arrows to jump around a bit. There you have it. All right, thanks for watching.